Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful September the 13th, 2019, ground of the Deportes. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, is Friday the 13th, and I mean, that's a scary, misnomer when a lot of people look at it,
Yeah.
but it's been a very interesting day on the PGA Tour. You had Kevin Campbell shoot a 59, the second lowest score ever in a PGA tournament.
Wow.
You had Sean Livingston, who was one of the last guys drafted out of high school, retired today from the Golden State Warriors after winning 3 NBA titles, Charlton, and college football is kicking off again tonight.
It's always good. I hear Friday the 13th. So some of my Italian friends, they say the number 13 is a good number. It's actually a money number, Big C. So we'll see. I guess it depends on what culture you're in. I've always thought that 13th was necessary to get to 14, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I saw some of those Friday the 13th movies, Charlton, when they first came out. And that made you not want to go to the Lincoln camp at night. It made everything kind of scary. And a lot of hotels you go to don't have a 13th floor.
Wow, that's very incredible, especially if you're out there a rapper. I think Vanilla Ice and, some guys, I won't say his last name, but his first name Sugar. You don't want to be on the 13th floor. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, just tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, there's so much going on in the world of the sports universe. I want to say Big C Sports is brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate what we're doing with Big C Sports. I want to make sure, I know it's Friday the 13th, but I want to make sure we give out this National Suicide Hotline. It's 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, I love when you say why it's so important to you to honor our veterans. Big C, your thoughts?
It is very important to honor our American veterans every day, Charlton, and not forget about them. There's so many veterans in need of help. Even when they don't ask for it, Charlton, they're out there struggling in society, socially, economically. They feel left out in many issues, Charlton, and over 20 veterans commit suicide in this country every day.
Wow.
That's a horrific number. And not only that, when we think about the teens and adolescents, Charlton, that commit suicide, there's the second highest rate of death amongst that age group.
Wow.
So as we think about this National Suicide Hotline, Charlton, as everyone wants to turn their focus this weekend to football and some Major League Baseball, Charlton, don't forget about those people that are struggling, that you think that they're doing okay. Check on somebody. If you see somebody you think that might be going through a crisis, don't be shy in handing out the National Suicide Hotline number to them, Charlton, because anybody you help is a life that you can save.
That is very true, Big C. I love that. And speaking of that, I want to get right into Big C's Friday Night Lights as we cover and pay homage to all of our young people that play sports around this country. We know that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And you want to find out more about what's going on with high schools, college, and pros, make sure you follow Big C Sports. Big C, #1, modern day, Santa Ana, California. They are 3-0 in the season. They would play the nation's #2 ranked team, St. Francis Academy out of Baltimore, Maryland. This game would be in Southern California. Big C, I'm told by people who cover high school sports, there's over 28 Division I prospects combined with these two schools. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's 28 Division I prospects, Charlton, but none of the kids are receiving any of the revenue from the game. You think about flying across the country, early exploitation of teams. I mean, it's a great opportunity to get showcased in front of some of the nation's greatest scouts. Charlton have an opportunity to go to some great universities. But when we talk about the 28 prospects, you got to look at the rest of the guys on the team, Charlton. What are their prospects?
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. We look at what happened last week. It was Mater Dei with a 71-21 win over two-time Arizona State champion Centennial. And then they'll be playing St. Francis Academy out of Baltimore. They haven't lost a game since 2016. And then number 3, St. John Bosco of Bellflower, California. They're in the same league with Mater Dei. And they beat Liberty of Henderson, Nevada, 49-7. And they will play Our Lady of Good Counsel. Big C, they're out of Ohlone, Maryland. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I also got to think about when these kids are traveling across country, what do they do academically? What day do they leave? Do they leave the day before the game,
yeah.
2 days before the game? You also got to look at the wear and tear on their body when they're traveling 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
You know, generally the team that has to travel that far and go through a time change is going to be at a disadvantage because they don't do that consistently.
Yeah, that's amazing. One more thing I want to bring up. If you've ever been to Southern California, Santa Ana is near Anaheim, which is big Republican territory. And Bruce Rollison, the head coach, has been at the helm for many years. It's in a predominantly white area. I mean, Orange County is known for white Republicans. Almost everyone in Mater Dei's team is black. I mean, you can Google it. Same thing with St. Francis. Big C, number 4, IMG Academy out of Bradenton, Florida. They're playing St. Joseph Prep out of Philadelphia. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you got to wonder sometimes, are there any local teams in the state, Charleston?
Probably not.
These teams can play out, because of the preparatory situation.
Yeah.
Where you also you're out there recruiting on the high school level, bringing in the elite talent, and makes a disadvantage for local kids in your district. So a lot of those schools refuse to play these schools, Charleston, because it's almost like when you look at Alabama and even Tennessee, who lost to Georgia State.
Yeah.
You're paying somebody all this money to come in and get beat up on, Charleston. And kids and schools are not really feeling that anymore.
And the amazing thing, this is like state champions playing state champions. Number 5, Duncanville, Texas. They're playing St. John's out of Washington, D.C. as well. So a lot of people, as you mentioned, somebody's paying this money. Oftentimes it's Nike, even though they don't want to make it well known, but they're doing it. Number 6, St. Thomas Aquinas, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Big C, sometimes you ask for something, you get it. They're playing South Plantation out of Pleasanton, Florida. They found a school in state. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, finally a high school game, Charleston, that you don't have to get on a plane and fly across the country and play somebody. I think part of the luster of high school, Charleston, is having those rivalries.
Yeah.
I know when I was in high school, and that was a long time ago, right after the leather helmet era, we had rivals that, your brothers had played, your cousins had played in these games.
Your uncles,
and you grew up, and cities came together because, it was just a short car drive.
Yeah.
To go there to the opposing city. And, you see generations sitting in the stands. You saw grandparents, parents, nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters sitting in the stands. I think something's lost when kids have to fly across the country and you don't get that heritage of the high school, rivalries that you have. I know we would, there would be situations where you broke out windows on buses, you ate buses, and
accidentally, I hope.
Minor destruction in a town or a high school that you went to. But, that was the fun of high school, and it seems like when you're treating high school kids like college kids, they lose a bit of life, Charlton, that they once had.
And I hope they're not breaking out windows on airplanes, Big C. That would not be a good experience. Number 7, St. Louis, Honolulu, Hawaii. They're playing Kahuku from Hawaii. Number 8, Lakeland, Florida. They're playing Plant City, also out of Florida. Number 9, Marietta, Georgia. They're playing Grayson of Loganville, Georgia. So a lot of those teams stay at home. And finally, number 10, Gonzaga of Washington, D.C. They also found a game. They just played It's Don Bosco Prep of Ramsey, New Jersey, and they won 35-21. And they decided they take the bus to their game. They're playing Georgetown Prep out of North Bethesda, Maryland, Big C. So that's good for the local people, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it really is, Charlton. Just as I mentioned, when your parents can come to all your games, your grandparents can come to all your games. When you're only a car ride away, you think about the growth time that you have in high school, the friendships that you create, the bonds that you have.
Yep.
And to have those kids, a lot of them you may have gone to grammar school with, and they moved to another area.
Yeah.
But, it means so much that you can look back and you've played somebody over a 4-year span from the time you were a freshman to the time that you were a senior in high school. And a lot of times you'll end up in the same colleges, and you look back and say, hey, you remember when this happened?
Yeah.
But when you're going across the country playing players, Charlton, you just don't have that sense of, camaraderie that you once had.
Yeah, sometime I know I I went to a high school game at my high school probably about a decade ago, and it's great when you see grandparents and fathers that are still wearing that Leatherman jacket that they can't even get on the arms, Big C. That makes any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, no, it's true, Charlton, and that's what that's about, keeping high schools local.
Yeah.
Is that you go back and you reminisce. You run into people that you might have played high school football with 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And 50 years ago. And, you know, even see your kids in that same high school, grandkids in those same high schools, and it brings back so many fond memories. And I think that's something that's being lost as far as the marketing aspect of high school football now, Charlton.
Yep.
Is that the money is bigger than what the game is.
Huge money.
And when you lose that sense of genuinism, that innocence, and that's what high school is all about. It's about innocence. It's an age of growing.
Yeah.
And when we continually take that away from kids, think about the pressure you put on them later on in life. That if they don't succeed, I mean, this is a lot of those that's going to need to call that National Suicide Hotline, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because they've been built up mentally and emotionally that they're the greatest.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, when they get to some place and they're not the greatest, what is the mental fallout on those type of situations?
Yeah, I think what's going on is what's called culling, where it's sponsored by. You can Google who sponsors these games, and it's a lot. It's done for the colleges. They'll fly the top teams together that can get all the best talent in their area from usually like a 50-mile radius, and they'll play each other, and it's sponsored by a very big sponsor, and it's done for the colleges. So we wish everybody the best. High school football is something that you should love, and you do it for the tradition and all that great stuff that we all think about and when we think about our youth. So congratulations to everyone. Please be safe tonight out there, whether you're playing or not playing, and don't let anyone drive drunk. That's so important. Big C, I want to jump into what we do with the historical black college universities and just go down some of the rankings and not necessarily get into the games for this weekend. But I know there's other programs that have devoted whole shows to it now, so I really appreciate you and your thoughts of it because you're down in the South. And I know you run across talent, you think, where have you seen this guy? He's not on TV, he's not playing in the SEC or the ACC, but these guys, they have as much of an opportunity to play pro ball as the guys who play at the major blue blood schools. Number one, North Carolina AT&T. Actually, North Carolina A&T. You can tell I have AT&T phones on Big C. Number two, Bethune-Cookman. Number three, Alcorn State. Number four, Southern. And number five, South Carolina State. I know that Southern oftentimes will play Grambling in a game, and they'll play oftentimes in the Superdome down in Louisiana. And what I love most about that game is the fanfare and the bands that will compete as hard as the teams. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when Southern and Grambling get together, Charlton, it was the first major big-time college program, black college program to get together. It's called the Bayou Classic.
Yeah.
And it's played every year down in New Orleans in the Superdome, Charlton. And as great and as grand as the game is, it's the battle of the bands the night before. It is a full-blown competition in the Superdome.
Yeah.
In the Superdome. The attendance for the battle of the bands, Charlton, for the Bayou Classic is just as much as the attendance for the game. There is a full-blown parade before the game, Charlton, and even the halftime spectacle at the Bayou Classic is the greatest in college football. When you think about all the great bands in college football out there, all of these bands have emulated something from the historical black colleges when they perform, whether it's Florida A&M, Grambling, Southern, Charlton, and on down the list. The pride of the historical black colleges, Charlton, I mean, they have great athletic programs, but it's always been in the artistic value of their bands.
Yeah, I think it's so culturally important that people, don't, it's like the movie Hidden Figures. If you hide it, people don't know about it, but there's a lot going in it because these coaches, for the most part, they're African Americans. The administrators, for the most part, African American. The presidents, the athletic directors, for the most part, they're African American. The boosters, for the most part, African Americans. And they also get that corporate money, but mainstream, they may show it like the blink of an eye. Number 6, Prairie View A&M. Number 7, Grambling, the late Eddie Robinson. I think Grambling, for college football's sake, is like USC on the West Coast. It's like Alabama down south, like Ohio State and Michigan up north, like Penn State, the Northeast. That program should be mentioned just because it's one of the staples of college football. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Grambling is always significant, Charlton, because Eddie Robinson was the winningest coach in college football history. And he turned out more players to the NFL than any single coach in college football history.
Yeah.
But the lineage of that university, Charlton, not just as an athletic institution, but an academic institution.
Yeah.
Before colleges were integrated, Grambling accepted all the African-American athletes, Charlton,
Yep.
and students,
Yep.
and brought them into mainstream America, Charlton. They groomed, our civic leaders. They groomed our athletes. It was a home away from home for minorities.
So important those days. And I'm glad that we talk about it, Big C. Number 8, Tennessee State, followed by number 9, Alabama State, and we'll round up with Norfolk State. There's also some other programs out there that are, nipping on the bud of the top 10, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Alabama A&M, and Florida A&M, as well as Hampton and Jackson State. So I love bringing the Big C sports, the historically black college programs, whether it's rankings or whether it's games. I've always heard many people in the African-American community say, whether it's right or wrong, well, they won't let us have something. Well, they won't give us this. No, you got to say, I am responsible. I'm going to speak about it, and that's why I'm glad you brought it up, Big C. We're going to cover it every week, just like we do every other program, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, to give homage and recognition, Charlton, that's how people get recognized. You think about all the scouting combines when they're talking about this athlete and that athlete.
Yep.
I wish some of the programs on television would talk about the African-American institutions out there, Charlton, historical black colleges, when they're rating players.
Yeah.
But they don't talk about them because it keeps their draft stock down and their financial value down, Charlton.
Yep.
But you have to bring these kids up. They're great athletes out there, whether it's football, basketball, baseball. It's just as long as they're not mentioned on television, Charlton, their financial gain goes down.
Well, we'll always talk about it on Big C Sports, so I appreciate you with your knowledge that you bring to that. Big C, I want to get into tonight's college football on Friday the 13th. Now, I've been told that if you see, and again, you always have to look at the messenger, because I grew up with black dogs, I grew up with black shoes, I had black cars, black friends. In fact, I was called black according to how they label people, but we're all people, Big C. But when you look at football, and we talk about Friday Night Lights and Friday the 13th, everybody knows this is a moment for high schools. But just like high schools are dipping into the weekend, modern day in St. Francis, they play Saturday night, 7:30. That's when a lot of the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 teams tip off. It's amazing. Tonight, we have college football, and it's amazing how they're dipping into the Friday Night Lights. North Carolina, with the great Mac Attack, they're at Wake Forest, and they may be brought down to reality. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Wake Forest is an outstanding team, Charlton. They won 5 of their last 6 games. Both of these teams started out the season 2-0.
Yeah.
North Carolina was an underdog going into this game tonight. Mac Brown spent almost a decade out of coaching, Charlton, prior to going back to North Carolina, where he got his real big start prior to getting to Texas.
Yeah.
But Wake Forest has a solid program. North Carolina's going in with a freshman quarterback.
Yep.
Wake has a junior that has a lot of experience. And you think about Wake Forest as an academic institution, Charles, it's like talking about Stanford.
Yeah.
This is one of those schools you have to be accepted academically before you can take a scholarship.
Yeah.
So you think about the intelligence level of the athletes at Wake Forest, and they have an African-American quarterback. So when people want to say that African-Americans are not cerebral,
yeah,
you got to go down to Wake Forest and take a look.
Well, when I was growing up, I had one of the best players in the area where I live. He got a scholarship to Notre Dame, and we knew he didn't go to class because he couldn't read. We asked him, how did he get to Notre Dame? And he said he could fog up a glass. I mean, that was funny, but he was a great player. Actually had a sniff in pro football also. Kansas at Boston College. The big game that I'm thinking about, for Pac-12's sake, and I'm always beating on my chest when it comes to Pac-12 West Coast football. Number 20, Washington State, they're 2-0, Big C, and they're at Houston 1-1, and that game is tonight. It's on artificial turf, and Washington State is favored by 9. Now, this is the same Houston team that challenged Oklahoma for a little bit. They challenged them. Washington State has to win this game. I know they're going down to some of that Texas justice. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Washington State has an outstanding young quarterback, Jonathan. Mike Leach keeps finding quarterback after quarterback. I know everybody talks about Lincoln Riley out there in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
but because of the size of that program, they don't get the recognition that Oklahoma gets. But if you look at the productivity of the last three quarterbacks at Washington, Charlton, all of them have been in the top 5 in the NCAA in passing.
Yeah.
And no different this year. They got a first-year starter that's in the top 5 statistically in the NCAA in passing.
Yeah, and Leach does a great job with the Cougars up at Washington State. Up in the Palouse, Big C. And so Saturday, we get into the games. Arkansas State's playing at number 3, Georgia. Georgia's 2-0. They're on grass. Georgia's favored by 33. They'll probably cover that. Number 6, Ohio State. A lot of people think Ohio State's not ranked nearly high enough. And they're playing a game now against one of their own conference rivals, a team that they should have an easy time with in Indiana. But Indiana's off to a 2-0 start. Still, Ohio State's favored by 16.5. I think they cover. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Indiana has played Ohio State tough the past couple of years, Charlton. They squeaked by with a win at home last year against Indiana. And Justin Fields, he's finally going to be put to the test with some Big Ten competition to see if he can keep that hot roll going for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, he has to get it going. Pittsburgh 1-1 at in-state rival number 11 Penn State. 2-0, that game's on grass. ABC Sports will have that. Penn State's favored by 17, Big C. And now a game that may be under the radar. Kansas State at 2-0. They're at number 23. Mississippi State also 2-0. That's a noontime kickoff on the mothership. It's on grass. And Mississippi State's favored by 8, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Mississippi State's going to be starting their backup quarterback in this game. There's a lot of great athletes, though, down there in Starkville, Mississippi, Charlton. And the Bulldogs have always gotten off to a good early start early in the season for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But when they look at Kansas State, the boys from the Big 12, they can play physical football also.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to a game in the trenches.
Well, that would be excellent to see that game. Here's a game that may fly under the radar on the national level, at least for another week. Number 25, Maryland. The Terrapins are 2-0. And a lot like Oregon, they have different type of designs on their helmets every week, so it's always interesting to see what type of helmet they'll wear. Temple's 1-0. That's a noontime kickoff. It's on grass, and Maryland's favored by 7. Now, this is a team that put up basketball numbers against Syracuse, but they're only favored by 7 against Temple. Maybe that's for the pollsters or the bettors, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's more for the bettors, Charlton. When you look at what Mike Loxley has done there at Maryland in just the 2 games that he's coached, they're averaging 71 points a game. I know that Temple has a lot of local boys, and this is just what we talked about in the high school games. There's a lot of kids that have grown up playing against each other that's going to play in this game, and so this is an emotional rivalry as much as a team and university rivalry. I like Maryland in this game because of what Mike Loxley has done. Maryland is much better, athletically than what people think and give them credit for.
Oh, yeah. When they say Maryland's favored by 7, I thought they meant they're going to score at least 7 touchdowns. I think that'd be more accurate. Big C, another big game coming up. Air Force, the Academy, 1-0 at Colorado, 2-0. Now, people might say big game. Air Force is an option team. Colorado's the Pac-12, even though I think they should move back into that Big 12, just my opinion for the fans. Colorado's favored by 4. And they're at home. Actually, they're favored by 4.5. They're at home. That's kind of a trap game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the thing about the academy teams, most of them run the wishbone or some type of veer offense, Charlton. Yeah. And that's something that's hard to prepare for in a matter of 5 days coming from playing against pro-style offenses. You think about the game that Colorado just had against Nebraska running a pro-style offense. Now you're going to go up against a team that cut blocks all the time, Charlton, that's running this veer option offense.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. And those big hulking athletes have a hard time keeping up with those smaller, quicker linemen and backs, Charlton. So this game will be close with Air Force.
It's amazing when you say the Air Force Academy, these gentlemen use cutbacks, and all the defensive linemen know what that means, Big C. In a game that I know we'll mention to you because you might be sweating about it, number 2, Alabama, they're 2-0. They're at South Carolina, 1-1. That's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. It's on grass, and Bama's favored by 25.5. Do you think they're going to need that half? Who's the half for anyway, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that half means that Nick Saban was complaining about the Alabama fans leaving last week at halftime because of the game against New Mexico State was a blowout.
Yeah.
And he was kind of upset about it that the student body said, look, we're bored out here and it's hot. So, that's what the half comes in for. South Carolina, I mean, it would be a shocker if they were to beat Alabama, Charlton. But, they have a good team out there, some tremendous athletes. And I think that they'll play Alabama close.
Yeah, I think
they'll cover the spread.
I think they'll cover the spread in that one. This is another big game. New Mexico 1-0 at Notre Dame 1-0. Got to get Notre Dame in there somehow, Big Z. The biggest game on the West Coast happens to be to the academic university that's the most difficult to get in. You have Stanford, they're 1-1 at number 16 Central Florida, 2-0. It's a 3:30 kickoff on ESPN. It's on grass. Central Florida is favored by 9. Now, David Shaw, when he is coaching any program, I think in the last 5 years, they're the winningest program outside of Boise State on the West Coast against Power 5 schools. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Stanford is hoping to get their starting quarterback back, Charlton. He left last week with a concussion.
Yeah.
But when you think about Central Florida, this is a team that can score points. They have a tremendous passing attack. What happened to Stanford last week? They were beaten by the pass. They lacked pass rush. They lacked secondary coverage.
Yeah.
So this could be a game, Charlton, going down there to Florida in the heat. Stanford, is not used to that humidity in Florida. They could be in trouble down there.
I think if they can run the ball, and it's the thing for Stanford is that they can get out there. It's a little bit early, so we'll just see how it is. I think they'll hold up. I'm really interested in that game. The point spread is just interesting. In the point spread at 9. I don't see that happening, but who knows? Number 24, Lynn Swann stepped down at his alma mater, Southern California. They're 2-0 in the season with the new quarterback, JT Daniels, was injured. They're at 1-1 at BYU. And that's on ABC, 3:30 kickoff. It's on grass, and Southern Cal's favored by 4.5 up in the mountains, Big C. Do you like that spread? Your thoughts?
Well, Salvi is an unknown entity for USC, Charlton.
Yep.
And you got to understand that Clay Helton's playing for his life. With Lynn Swann stepping down, USC is going to bring in a new AD.
Yep.
Clay Helton has to win a minimum 9 to 10 games this year, Charlton, to stay at the helm at USC.
Yeah.
Can this freshman quarterback, coming off the bench, he had no pressure.
Right.
Now that he's had a week to prepare, how will his stomach feel once he gets out there and up there in that altitude at BYU?
Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll play better if he's not worried about Sam Darnold. How do you get mononucleosis? Nowadays, everybody runs around kissing and licking. You got to ask people that you kiss. Here's a tip from Big C Sports. Before you kiss anybody or swap whatever you're swapping with them, ask them who was the last one they kissed on or licked on. And it's a shame that Sam Darnold, and of course the USC Trojans, it's just amazing that I wasn't aware that they could mention what your disease happens to be. If they did that for everybody, I don't think that's a good thing. They should change that ruling. No one should have to know who he's been licking or kissing on, and I hope it doesn't affect the people at Southern California this weekend. One of the bigger games in a small state, Iowa. Number 18, Iowa, Big C, out of the Big Ten, 2-0. They're at Iowa State, 1-0. Iowa State's a good team. It's on grass. Iowa's favored by 2.5. That might be a trap. Iowa State can play some football, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you've got two excellent teams, Charlton, in the Big Ten and the Big 12. And this is an in-state rival. These two teams get together, Charlton, and it's what they call in the old days a snot knock. I mean, they're going to play some smash-mouth football. I always like what Iowa does. Iowa's a team that always is sneaky good.
Yeah.
They always have great tight ends. They have a running back that can always play at the next level. But Iowa State has an excellent junior quarterback, Charlton. Their running back is gone. They got to find somebody who can control the ball on the ground. But this is a game that's close to the point score.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, especially such a small state. Two good programs in a small state. Another big game for the West Coast. You look at Arizona State, the Sun Devils. They're 2-0. They're at number 19, Michigan State. You have the Big Ten versus the Pac-12, and this game is on Fox. It's a grass surface, and Michigan State's favored by 14.5. And I don't know if they're going to cover, but that's a big point spread against a team that can run fast in Arizona State. Your thoughts?
Well, it used to be you had to wait to the Rose Bowl to get a Big Ten Pac-12 matchup, Charlton. Now you're getting them early in the season.
That's right.
I like Michigan State in this game, Charlton. They have a senior quarterback, and they're a very physical team. Arizona State is starting a true freshman. I don't know if he's ready for prime time yet, but I like the Big Ten in this game.
Well, we'll definitely find out because we played to win the game, and that might help them with the great Herm Edwards, Big C. This is another big game that I think may fly under the radar. If you think about it, number 8, Florida, they're 2-0. they looked like they were struggling to beat Miami, but we thought Miami was great at that time. Miami's still winless. We'll see what happens with them. But they're on the road at Kentucky. Kentucky's 2-0. Kentucky's been playing good football lately. That game's on grass. And Florida's favored by 8.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think Dan Mullen is still smart down at the University of Florida, Charlton, from last year when the University of Kentucky knocked them off for the first time in like 21 years, Charlton.
Yep.
But Kentucky and Stoops has an excellent program. Kentucky lost their starting quarterback to a knee injury, so they're going to be playing a kid that transferred in from Troy, and we'll see how he'll be able to handle that Florida defense. He has never faced the defense with the athletes that Florida has on it.
That's very true. A couple of more college games, and we'll get into the Big C timeout. Number 1, Clemson, 2-0. They're at Syracuse, 1-1. I know that game is 7:30 kickoff on ABC Sports. It's on artificial surface. Clemson's favored by 28. But this is the same Syracuse team that almost knocked them off last year down in the Valley. But if you watch the tape that Maryland put together, then they may have the number and the reason to make sure this game is not that close. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Syracuse-Clemson, Charlton, over the last 2 years, Syracuse has actually outscored Clemson over the last 2 years, and they split the series 1-1. So now this is the swing game in that series, Charlton. Lawrence, did not play in the game last year other than about the first 4 or 5 minutes. Clemson had to have a backup quarterback finish the game.
Yep.
So I think with Travis Etienne and when you look at Syracuse, who has struggled, especially at that butt whipping they took last week up there at Maryland, they don't have the confidence to go in and stand with the big boys down in Clemson this week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of good games, but they're kind of under the radar games. We have Portland State 1-1 at Boise State 2-0. Boise State ranked number 22. Montana is 2-0. They're at number 17. Oregon 1-1. Texas Tech out of the Big 12 at Arizona 1-1. Texas Tech is 2-0. That's a late game. It's a 10:30 kickoff game down in the desert. And Texas Tech is favored by 2. Arizona has to. This is kind of Pac-12, Big 12 supremacy. I know people look at the ACC and they say, okay, that's a good conference, but there's still SEC and Big 10 this year. But when it comes down to Pac-12 and it comes down to the Big 12, these games matter as to which conference is perceived stronger. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know that Arizona has trouble defending the pass. If you remember that first game out of Hawaii, Alex Ballman down at Texas Tech, Charlton, is an outstanding sophomore quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to light Arizona's secondary up for at least 400 yards passing, and Kevin Sumler's going to be in trouble out in the desert.
That's interesting. 2 more games I want to bring up because I think they're important on a national scale, and that's number 4, Oklahoma. You say, Oklahoma, why is that important? They're 2-0. They're playing at UCLA 0-2. It's a Fox Sports game on grass at the Rose Bowl. Oklahoma's favored by 22.5. Chip Kelly has yet to win a non-conference game. They gave him a lot of money to turn UCLA into what Oregon was when he got there. And we talk about Helton being on the hot seat for being undefeated at USC. I don't think it's too early to say Chip Kelly's on the hot seat. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at UCLA, Charlton, they have no talent. When you think about talent, I mean, that cupboard is bare. When Chip Kelly was at Oregon, it was that you could entice kids with all the Nike gear. So they would just show up because you had 93 different uniforms to wear, plus you had all this Nike gear to wear around campus. It would woo any great athlete coming out of high school. But now that he's down at UCLA, there's no campus facilities that they have, Charlton. You got to travel 100 miles to get to the stadium. Oklahoma scores on the season more than 50% more points than what UCLA does. Wow. They have no offense. They have no defense. You think about the drubbing that they took from San Diego State and Cincinnati, Charlton. Those are 2 very subpar programs when you compare them to Oklahoma. You said the point spread was 27?
His point spread is actually 22.5, Big C.
Okay. Oklahoma will cover that in the first half.
Yeah, I feel bad for Chip Kelly, but he has all that money coming from NFL and college football. Last game for West Coast bragging rights. Hawaii 2-0, and they're not ranked yet. They're playing on the road at number 21 Washington Huskies. They're 1-1. They lost that late game to Cal, but it was like 1:20 in the morning when it finished. It's a Pac-12 network, artificial surface, and the Huskies are favored by 21. But I'm not so sure that they will cover the spread, but I think they'll win. Your thoughts?
Well, Cole McDonald there in Hawaii, Charlton, he's 2-0 this year against the Pac-12. He's beat up on Arizona. He's beat up on Oregon State.
Yeah.
We saw that Washington went down to Strawberry Canyon last week and just couldn't muster a win against Cal, and I didn't think Cal was that strong. They had struggled against UC Davis.
Yeah.
Cole McDonald can throw the ball. The Huskies are going to have a challenge this week.
Well, I tell you what, life is fun. It's Friday 13th. It's Friday Night Lights on Big C Sports. We know a lot of people are having a great time. The weather's about to change. We're starting to get the weather dipping down a little bit colder now. We're going to come back and talk about what we do with NFL football. We're going to get Big C's thoughts on some games coming up. You're going to like what we talk about after the Big C timeout. We hope that you'll come back and join us. All right, we are back on Big C Sports after the Big C timeouts, and I really like where we're going. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker. You can follow us on YouTube. If you have a TV set at home, you can follow us on Xfinity Comcast. But what I really like are the apps by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing, and I really appreciate our sponsors for all the support. Big C, there's a lot happening in the world of pro football, and I hope that we can see better games coming up. I know Carolina, and last night Carolina fell again at home this time, and they fell to Winston and also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give me your feeling. Cam Newton, I know he had a decent game, but I still want to see more energy out of Cam Newton. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I see Cam Newton as a very lackluster quarterback right now, Charlton, and I saw that last year. We spoke about it in the latter part of the season before he was out there. He has no sense of urgency as a quarterback. Cam Newton lollygags out of the huddle, and I think the team feeds off what he brings, nothing.
Yeah.
And so I don't see the enthusiasm in Carolina as a professional organization. Cam Newton, I mean, he's a tremendous athlete, but he's got to stop thinking about himself as a tremendous athlete because he's a wounded athlete now.
Yeah.
And he's not that dominant guy that he was at the University of Auburn. When he walked on the field, he was the best athlete that was out there. When he showed up in the NFL, everybody had those great athletes, Charlton. In a couple years, they figured him out. But I think that the injuries have caught up with him. I know he had his second shoulder surgery back in January. He sprung his ankle about 4 weeks ago in the preseason, Charlton.
Yeah.
So he is not healthy in any capacity. But he's going out there hurting his team, not helping his team. If you think about Cam Newton, he has lost his last 8 starts.
Yeah.
That's a dismal quarterback in the NFL. That is a quarterback that is not getting the job done.
Yeah.
And you saw the lack of productivity of him in the game last night.
Yeah.
Here it is. He's outperformed by Jameis Winston, the most struggling quarterback in the NFL over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
He's had more turnovers than any starting quarterback in the NFL over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And yet Carolina could not hold down that Tampa Bay offense. So maybe Jameis Winston is growing up with Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
He didn't turn the ball over as many times last night. He knew how to stay out of trouble. But Carolina right now, I see as a struggling team. And I don't know if they'll win a game anytime soon. They could start out the season 0-6.
When they had that Super Bowl out in San Francisco, it was Super Bowl 50. They lost to Denver. There was a play where Cam Newton was back to pass in the fourth quarter with about 4 minutes to play, and he fumbled the ball. And he didn't dive at it. He kind of stepped out of the way like he didn't want to pick it up. I know maybe Las Vegas had a lot more to do with that game than people want to admit. Well, a big game coming up this week. Dallas Cowboys 1-0 at the Washington Redskins 0-1. That game is Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, start on Fox Sports. The Cowboys are favored by 5.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Skins, they fell off last week. They had a 17-0 lead on the Philadelphia Eagles, and then they lost Darius Geist, their running back. Adrian Peterson will be playing this week. Can he bring any spark to that offense? When you look at Dak Prescott, he was a world beater last week with a 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. You're going to get a little more Ezekiel Elliott this week, Charlton. He's got his game legs back under him. I see Dallas winning this game easily.
Well, another big game coming up. You have the Colts and their new quarterback, untested really, 0-1. At the Tennessee Titans that are 1-0 Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern Time on CBS Sports. And the Titans are favored by 3. The Titans look to flex some muscle at home in this game, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I really like what Mike Vrabel and the Titans did last week. As long as they can keep Marcus Mariota healthy, when you think about Derrick Henry running the football, he is a horse. Nobody really wants to get in front of him once he gets into that secondary. Charlton, most defensive backs are going on and score. But, the Tennessee Titans have all the weapons offensively. They got the speed. Delaney Walker, a great tight end.
Yep.
And when you're looking at the Indianapolis Colts, they played a lot better than what everybody expected last week versus the Chargers. When you think about the running back getting 175 yards,
yep.
Hilton had a couple of touchdowns. Brissett really has to get started early. He can't wait until the third quarter to figure things out if he wants to stay in this game with Indianapolis.
Here's another key game, and it's really big. When you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they're 1-0 on this season. They're at the Pittsburgh Steelers 0-1, and the Steelers really haven't played a game because they were asleep at New England for some reason. Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The Steelers are favored by 4, and I don't know why. It doesn't feel like they should be, but the Steelers' offense, if they can outpace the Seahawks, and you think about how the defense is Seattle. The defense in Seattle is still a good defense. I know they have to come from behind to win their game over, the first week against Cincinnati, but I'm not so sure that Pittsburgh is themselves anymore. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Ben Roethlisberger, Charlton, he's either the problem or the solution in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
When you think about their receiving core, Antonio Brown is gone. But they really don't have a number one receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster is a number 2 receiver. Now they're trying to put him at number 1. He doesn't have the speed to go over the top.
Nope.
Their number 2 receiver, who was a number 3 receiver, can't catch the ball. The guy was targeted 11 times and dropped 6 last week.
Wow.
So the Pittsburgh Steelers are in trouble.
Yeah.
James Conner has been inconsistent since midway through last season. So the running game is not a dominant running game that they had with Le'Veon Bell. The defense is solid in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So, they can have some struggles. When I look at what Russell Wilson can do with Seattle, this is the type of defense that's set up for him to be mobile, to get outside the pocket, Charlton, and make things happen.
Yeah.
I don't see Ben Roethlisberger having a great day with the 2 defensive ends that Seattle has.
Yeah, and I know it's an early game, but I'm not buying Pittsburgh yet, Big C. Buffalo Bills, your favorite game to watch this weekend. Buffalo, they're 1-0. They're at the Giants 0-1. That's a Sunday kickoff, 1 o'clock p.m. on CBS Sports. And the Bills are favored by 1.5. This is a game, it's almost like the over-under in Vegas. Will Eli remain the starting quarterback past the first month of September? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a game for the supremacy of the state of New York when you think about Buffalo and the Giants.
Yeah.
But this is also a game that can affect the contracts of Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
When you look at Josh Allen, will he have any type of success against the New York Giants defense? If the New York Giants can rise up and hold Josh Allen to under 250 yards passing, Charlton, Dak Prescott is worth every bit of $32 million a year.
Oh, of course he is. If you look at some of the other players making kind of money and not even having the same winning percentage. Big C, here's another big game because the media is all over the Miami Dolphins right now. It's not the same. The team that, the no-name defense, the great Don Shula that went undefeated from start to finish. The Patriots 1-0 at the Dolphins 0-1 Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern Time on CBS Sports. The Patriots are favored by 18.5. And when you think about the line of scrimmage, I don't know how the Dolphins stay in this game. It's like it might be practice again for the Patriots. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the last time these two teams met and the Dolphins snuck up on the Patriots with a trick play at the end of the game, Charlton, to go down and score, and they even tried to play Gronkowski at safety, and he couldn't keep up with the back.
Yeah.
This is a game, Charlton, that, if you ever want to just mail in a score and say, hey, save the airfare, this is one of those games. I don't see anything that Miami can do to even act like an NFL team in this game. I know that Brian Flores has a history with the Patriots. He was the defensive coordinator last year in the Super Bowl for the Patriots. Now he's a first-year head coach with the Dolphins. If there was ever an NFL tanking for the number 1 pick in the draft, you have it this year in the Miami Dolphins.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll cover that spread. They played them close over the years. The Jacksonville Jaguars 0-1 at the Texans 0-1. And you got to feel for the Texans. They had the lead with 37 seconds left down in New Orleans, Big C. Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, CBS Sports. And the Texans are favored by 8. But when you look at the Jaguars rookie Garner Minshew out of Washington State replacing the great Nick Foles, anyone has a chance, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I feel for Deshaun Watson in this game. You look at how he was beat up last week in New Orleans. New Orleans doesn't have the greatest defensive line, but now you go down to Jacksonville.
And they
have a defensive line that can get after you, and they will get after Deshaun Watson. He will have all type of pressure. He was sacked 6 times last week in New Orleans. I see them equaling that same amount here in Jacksonville. Gunnar Minshew, as you talked about it, Charlton, he started off the game 13 of 13.
Amazing.
The young man had all the poise in the world. And you think about it, he was the best quarterback in the Pac-12 last year, but he was only a 6th-round draft pick by Jacksonville. I think they have a diamond in the rough, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people this season in the NFL, and Houston may end up being 0-2.
Wow, that would be incredible. The Vikings 1-0 at the Packers 1-0. Sunday, 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern Time on Fox Sports. The Packers are favored by 3. I know they're out there on the grass. And if you think about what's happening, there has to be a very new confidence that's going on in Minnesota because they got to win over a good team in Atlanta, we think. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Minnesota did something that they went back to from years ago, Charlton. They ran the ball. It seemed almost like Adrian Peterson was still playing there when you watch Dalvin Cook run the ball. That's going to be the key for success with the Vikings, if they can keep Dalvin Cook healthy and keep him running the ball. He had over 100 yards on the ground last week. Aaron Rodgers struggled with Green Bay. Minnesota has a tremendous defense, and you think about Green Bay, only 1 touchdown in their opening game of the season. Minnesota hung up 4 of them against the Atlanta Falcons. I still like Minnesota in this game. I think your cousin may do just enough to win it.
He's not my cousin, but what a great game coming up, looking at that, especially at Lambeau Field. Here's a game, Garoppolo. I know Mullins is the favorite choice by the coaching staff there in San Francisco, but they're not going to say it. And even though you hear the Niners won a game, the defense won a game. Winston gave them 2 pick six. That means he's 2 touchdowns scored by the defense, and they got out of Tampa with the win. And so we'll see how well he'll play against this team coming up over the weekend, Big C. But give me your feeling. You have the 49ers on the road at the Bengals they had Seattle on the road. The Bengals are favored by 2. It's in Ohio. It's a 1 o'clock start on Fox Sports. And the 49ers actually stayed in Ohio, so they didn't have to make that cross-country flight this time, Big C. Give me your thoughts.
Well, when you think about what Garoppolo did last week, he struggled actually against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a pretty good defense, though. And Cincinnati took it to Seattle. Just for the luck of Russell Wilson, he was able to pull it out late. Andy Dalton played outstanding last week. And if Andy Dalton can play the way he played last week, this week against San Francisco, Cincinnati will come out with a win. Jimmy Garoppolo, regardless of being 9-2 as a starter with the 49ers, he still has not lit the world on fire to make that type of money.
He's 7-2. In fact, you got to look at the fact that the defense won that game. As a former defensive player, if your defense gets 2 pick six on the road, Big C, you hate to say the quarterback won the game. No, he didn't win the game. That defense won the game. It's all about competition. Here's another big game that's important for so many reasons. The Arizona Cardinals are 0-1. At the Baltimore Ravens 1-0. It's a Sunday game, 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports. The Ravens are favored by 13. And you think about Kyler Murray, the first-round NFL pick, and also you think about Jackson. They were both kind of encouraged and kind of some snide remarks of playing, being said in media they should play defensive back or receiver. Well, here are 2 guys that can showcase their elite talent on the field. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we saw a game last night that showcased 2 former Heisman Trophy winners, Charlton. And we're going to see another game for showcasing 2 former Heisman Trophy winners. And when you think about what Lamar Jackson did last week, Charlton, against the Miami Dolphins, I know it was the Miami Dolphins, but he has showed the ability that he has grown as a quarterback. And I really got to praise John Harbaugh, the coach for Baltimore. You think about the change that he made mid-season last year, bringing in Jackson, making him the starting quarterback, and all the personnel adapting to that new scheme. That shows the intelligence of the players on offense in Baltimore. But not only that, the growth of what Jackson has had in his opening game this year. Being 8-1 as a starter in the NFL, those are tremendous numbers, as we talked about Cam Newton losing his last 8 starts. Kyler Murray struggled. I think he has a better understanding now of the NFL because he did not really play in the preseason. So now he's getting more in tune with the rhythm of the game, Charlton. Baltimore still has great defensive players. So he's going to be under a lot of pressure. Baltimore and Lamar Jackson wins this easily.
let me take you to a game that's going to be in Detroit. Detroit, Motown, Los Angeles Chargers 1-0 coming in there with the lightning bolts on their helmet. And they're playing at the Detroit Lions 0-1. Now, here's a team in Stanford, and you look at how they probably don't expect to get anywhere near playoffs. But you do look for the Lions to maybe control the line of scrimmage. I don't know. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday, Eastern Time on CBS Sports. And the Chargers on the road are favored by 2, Big C, against a quarterback that's making over $100 million on his contract. Your thoughts?
Well, if you think about this, Charlton, over the last 10 regular season games, last year and this year, the Chargers have been the hottest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
They knocked off everybody. They beat all the top teams last year, other than the playoff run, Charlton, that they had. They were the hottest team in the NFL over the last 10 games of the regular season.
Yeah.
And you look at what they did last week against Indianapolis. I think they shocked a lot of people by proving that they had a running game, that everything wasn't revolving around Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to find a fix at tight end. They lost their tight end in the game. I don't know if Green can step up, kid that they had signed from Denver. But I like the Chargers in this game, Charlton. Detroit just doesn't possess enough offense to keep up with the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Big C. Another game that's coming up that a lot of people are looking at. You look at the Bears, and these are 2 teams that are just, you expect them to be in the playoffs. You have the Chicago Bears 0-1 at the Denver Broncos 0-1. You know it's mile high up there. It's a Sunday game at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on Fox Sports. And the Bears are favored by 2.5 on the road. This is John Elway's team. This is John Elway's. He built this team from ground up, Big C. If the Bears can go in there, and the Bears can be who we thought they were, they'll come out with a 1-1 on the season. Your thoughts?
Well, you had 2 quarterbacks that had lackluster performances last week, Charlton, but you're talking about 2 of the greatest pass rushing teams the NFL, in Denver and in Chicago.
Yep.
Defense will prevail in this game. Trubisky has to find a way to get the ball to his receivers, Charlton. He's got to be able to score more than 3 points, and I think this is a recipe where he can. If they emulate what the Raiders did last week, Charlton, just throw the ball down the field against this Denver Broncos defense, they'll have success because Joe Flacco will not be able to avoid the rush of the Chicago Bears.
When you think about it, the Broncos are 8-2 in their last 10 home openers. You think about Coach Vic Fangio, he'll have Denver ready to go in that game. I'm just believing that. Here's another big game. I know you like Berg's, Big C. It's Friday the 13th. Is it a bad day for Berg's at Big C's restaurants, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there's chicken wings on the menu, Charlton, and they're fresh. they weren't long coming out of the pen.
I was asking if you had any bald Eagles you could send me. I think the phone line dropped, but the Eagles want to know. At the Falcons 0-1, that game is Sunday. It's an 8:20 p.m. start Eastern Time on NBC Sports. So the great Al Michaels and Collins were doing that game. The Eagles they're favored by 2 down in the Dome in Atlanta. This is a team that was just in the Super Bowl recently, but we know the Eagles have dominated this matchup the last 3 years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about both of these teams, Charlton, they were both in the Super Bowl 2 and 3 years ago, representing the NFC.
Yep.
But the Falcons, this is the team that's very lackluster last week offensively. They didn't score a touchdown till the last 30 seconds of the game, which was really meaningless at that point. The Eagles had a high-flying offense. When you think about Deshaun Jackson returning to Philadelphia and his productivity on 2 deep touchdown passes, since he's been in the NFL, he's led the NFL in long touchdowns over 50 yards. He's been the leader in that throughout his career. Carson Wentz showed me a lot. They got a solid running game. I think Dan Quinn might be in a little trouble down in Atlanta. Matt Ryan making a lot of money. Julio Jones got a new contract, and they didn't have any productivity in Week 1.
Well, I wanna jump to Monday night before I come back on 2 big games that I really want to get your thoughts on. On Monday night, we have the Browns 0-1 at the Jets 0-1. These are 2 media darling cities and 2 media darling teams, but Cleveland and New York on different sides of the moon. Monday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on ESPN. The Browns are favored by 6.5. We know they struggled in their first game. There was so much talk about what they were going to do, but both quarterbacks here, Darnold's not going to be playing. So now you got to look at what they're going to do in New York with Trevor Siemian. But I know this is about Baker Mayfield, and your boy, will he wear the $200,000 watch for this game? Odell Beckham Jr. Big for your thoughts.
Well, Odell's going to wear the watch. Odell is trying to rile up the media in New York coming back to town, saying that Greg Williams targeted him, when he was playing with the Giants. Hell, you target every receiver that wants to run out there over the middle, Charles.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, play touch football? No, you try to knock his butt out of the game.
Yeah.
If he's running his mouth, you lay the wood on him. But, when I look at this game with the Cleveland Browns, everybody had sung the Browns' praise last year because they won a few games for the first time in a decade.
Yeah.
But realistically, Charlton, they had the weakest schedule in the NFL when you look at them as a team. Everybody has tape on them now, what they're doing, okay? So they're not sneaking up on anybody.
Right.
They shot their mouths off all during the offseason. These are grown men you're playing against. This is not college players that you're going out there. You got to face them a couple times throughout the year.
Yep.
I don't see the Browns being a team that's going to win more than 7 games this year, Charlton. I know the media loves them. Vegas loved them. But in reality, people line up for them. It's like playing the best. You bring your best to the table.
Yep.
Everyone said the Browns were going to be one of the better teams in the NFL, so everybody gets up for them every week.
Yeah.
I like the Jets this week. I look at Trevor Siemian. He's 13-11 as a starter in the NFL. He's not a slouch. He's won more NFL games than Baker Mayfield has. He has some weapons in New York. They just picked up Demaryius Thomas, a receiver.
Yeah.
But the Jets have some outstanding defensive players. I know they don't have Darnold in there, but one guy is not going to make or break the team all the time. Trevor Siemian has more NFL experience than Darnold.
Yeah.
So I like the Jets at home in this game because the Browns are smarty. They're playing with a lot of pressure. Their head coach, Freddie Kitchens, he's not the coach he was last year. He's changed his mentality from being an interim coach, thinking that he's a head coach now. He wants to be a CEO instead of a guy just having fun.
Yes, but just having fun. And I think Odell Beckham Jr., I can give him one word of advice. I told you that gold chain that I bought in New York City, Big C, that gold watch and the chain, and it turned my neck green and my wrist green. I don't think we shop at the same jeweler store, Big C. 2 big games in the NFL before we get into Big C's MLB schedule. The Raiders. The Raiders are at home after having their first game at home, and they got the win against Denver, which seemed like it was just the universe gave the Raiders fans from justice. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes 1-0 at the Raiders 1-0 Sunday 4:05 kickoff Eastern Time on CBS Sports, and the Chiefs are favored by only 7.5. This is an organization that has owned the Oakland Raiders. Despite the Raiders playing at home for the second week in a row, there's just a lot of talent. I know they have the black hole. I know they have this nostalgia about this is our last chance to see the Raiders, but I don't think that matters to Kansas City. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, throughout the history of the AFL, the AFC, this is one of the greatest rivalries in all of pro football when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and Oakland Raiders, Charlton. It's not just a game. This is what a college game is all about on the professional level.
Yeah.
These two organizations really hate each other.
Yep.
They hate each other. But when I look at the Raiders defensively, they have a lot of upgrades on defense, but they lost one of their star young defensive backs in the game against the Broncos, so they're going to be short on the back end in the secondary. And that's not a place that you want to be short against the Kansas City Chiefs when you're looking at Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
A man can throw the ball. He can throw the ball from any angle, any direction on the field.
Yeah.
And when you look at how Sammy Watkins exploded last week, you got Travis Kelce. Shady McCoy had an outstanding game in the backfield with 81 yards rushing. So this is a team, Charlton, that can bring it to you from any direction. Their defense is much improved this year.
Yep.
I like the Raiders. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout, but I see Patrick Mahomes hanging up 4 touchdowns on the Raiders defense.
Yeah, I think so too, Big C. This is a game, they say revenge is best served cold. I think that was Khan in the movie Star Trek, Big C. I used to love watching Star Trek back in the days with Captain James T. Kirk and Spock, them good old boys. Well, Khan might be playing for the New Orleans Saints in this game. They're 1-0 at the Rams 1-0. This game is in LA. It's Sunday, 4:25 p.m. kickoff Eastern Time on Fox Sports. And the Rams are only favored by 2 at the Coliseum. You think about Aaron Donald on the defense for the Rams. You think about Drew Brees against Jared Goff. We know that we picked Drew Brees over Goff, but Goff's making much more money. Some things don't seem fair, Big C. Will this be revenge, or will it be the same old song, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't even know if you think about revenge. I know the Saints, you can never get a game like that out of your mind because of the stakes that were on the line in the NFC Championship last year.
Yeah.
But you also got to look at where the Rams' offense was last week in Carolina, Charlton. They were not dominant. They were not in rhythm. I mean, if not for the running game that they had 150 yards on the ground, and that's what kept them in the game.
Yeah.
Can they have that type of explosiveness on the ground? Because I don't know if Jared Goff is ready for this game, Charlton. His last 2 games as an NFL quarterback have not been very productive.
No.
He hasn't passed for 200 yards in either one of them.
Nope,
in the Super Bowl or the opening game against Carolina. You know, going against New Orleans, you're going to have to score some points. And so will the Rams, get their game plan together? Sean McVay, will he have his offense in full tilt? Because he's going to need that against New Orleans and Drew Brees.
He's going to need that and a bag of chips. And if they ever try to protect the lead, maybe like Romeo Crennel, they won't play prevent defense against Drew Brees. We'll see what happens in LA. It's a really big game. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can follow us on YouTube if you have a TV set at home, and most people still do. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. But I really do love the apps by Alexa and Google. Just say Alexa or Google Play Big C Sports, and I really appreciate what we're going with our sponsors. Big C, I want to close out tonight on Big C Sports Friday Night Lights. It's Friday the 13th. I don't know if baseball players are superstitious. I know there's some football players, I've been told, and I know from when I was back in the day playing, if you won a game, they would not change their jock straps until they lost. So could you imagine if you haven't lost a game in a couple of weeks, Big C? Tonight's Big C's MLB schedule, Chicago playing Pittsburgh. You have Washington versus Atlanta at home. The LA Dodgers playing New York. You have St. Louis at Milwaukee. San Diego's playing at Colorado. And Cincinnati is in Arizona. San Francisco is at home versus Miami. It's a shame with Bruce Bochy playing the Swan Song at Oracle Ballpark in San Francisco. The stadium holds about 41,000. Big C, they're getting about 25,000 a night. That's not right, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, with so much interest going on in the world of sports, Charlton, and when you're not in competitive nature, as far as being in the pennant race, you look at all the sports that are going on there in the Bay Area. You talked about Cal, you talked about Stanford. You got the 49ers and you got the Raiders. So and the A's are in the wild card hunt.
Yeah.
So if you're the wild man on the left outside, Charlton, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. So they're just playing out the string because there's too much competition for the dollar, and if you're not going to win it, they're not going to be in the stadium.
Yeah, that's true. So we look forward to the Giants, how they'll finish out this season. We'll see. In the American League, New York, they're at Toronto. Detroit's playing Baltimore. Minnesota's at Cleveland. Oakland at Texas. And you think about this game, Houston, Kansas City. Oakland, you can't tell they're a wild card team the way they've traded blows with Houston, Big C. And so if there's a wild card team that you don't want to see in the American League or National League, would you say the A's would be that team, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you look at the A's as well as you look at Cleveland, Charlton, because when you get back there at the Jake, and it's cold during October.
Yeah.
That's the conditions you don't want to play in Major League Baseball, where it's cold, that bat stings your hand.
Yep.
The pitcher's not always able to grip the ball properly, Charlton. So Cleveland is a team that I would worry about in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens as they swing the bat in September. Tampa Bay is at the Angels, and then you have Seattle. They're hosting Chicago. So we look forward to a lot of great things on this beautiful Friday the 13th. We had Big C's Friday Night Lights. We had the historical black college universities and talking about their rankings. We've talked about college football and some of the big games that are happening tonight on Friday and even on Saturday. And then, of course, NFL. We love NFL football and then Major League Baseball. So we hope everyone, please stay safe. Do not let people drink and drive. Just do not do it. Take the keys, call a cab, Uber, whatever you got to do. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Browning. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, one of the games that's flying under the radar tonight is University of Kansas at Boston College. Les Miles has Kansas off to a 1-1 start. Will he be fortunate enough to get to 2-1 against the Boston College Eagles?
Well, we'll see. I know Wildcats and Eagles. I think I take the Wildcat in a fight, but the Eagles can fly and get away. But you can fly too with us every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and just call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to deal with that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.